Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2018 Candidate Forum. We will begin tonight's session with candidates for the Carteret County Board of Education. They are, in order, Ms. Lucy Bond, Ms. Beth Harker, and Chairman Perry Harker. We will begin with each making an opening statement of up to 2 minutes. We will have a question and answer session that the answers will be up to 1.5 minutes, and then we will have a 1-minute closing statement. So we will begin our opening statements. Mrs. Bond.
Well, I guess you've seen my sign. It's a big bright yellow school bus sign. I am from Carteret County. I was born and raised here. I am a lifelong educator. After graduating from West Carteret, I went off to school, college, and then graduate school because I wanted to learn all that I could about children and how they learn. I did work with high-risk preschoolers and social agencies like social services, mental health, and Head Start, and then I taught in the public schools for 30 years. I now work part-time in the high school equivalency program at the community college. I believe that our Carteret County schools are great. I think that our administrators, our school board members, our teachers, community members are very supportive and dedicated. But there are challenges every day in every school, and I recognize that. Some students struggle to meet academic growth. There's too much testing. Teachers work hard and they are paid too little, and we know that. There is an addiction problem in our community that spills over into our public schools. So we have needs that we have to think about. Student services that connect with families are important. We need up-to-date measures to keep our schools healthy and safe. And we need diversity in our school staff. We need staff that look like their students. So we need a little more of that. We need to encourage a positive school culture where children are supported and are allowed to grow socially, emotionally, and cognitively. And we need more respect for our teachers. I have a passion for public school education. My own children went through public schools, and I now have a granddaughter, and she reminds me every day that we need good quality public school education for her and her future classmates. So it's important. And it gives students from all backgrounds a chance to have a better life. I guess that kind of sounds old-fashioned, but really I think public school education is a way for us to have economic justice, racial justice, and social justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Beth Harker. I've lived in Carteret County, specifically in Emerald Isle, for the past 30 years. I have a background of doing a lot of different types of work, but particularly in social work. I was also an intellectual disability specialist. I've taught curriculum classes and sociology at Coastal Carolina Community College. I have a bachelor and a master's degree in sociology from Appalachian. But starting 13 years ago, I began to work with the Basic Skills Department here at Carteret Community College. And I began working with GED students. I have taught some of high school classes here at the college in the high school program. But most of the time I've spent working with people who are trying to get their GED, or we call it now high school equivalency diploma. And on a daily basis, I see how important it is to people to have an education for so many reasons, but particularly to get good, sound employment. So this really made me think a whole lot about the importance of public school. Plus, my children went to public school here too, but I've really had it on my mind a whole lot in the last few years, and I was just very excited about running for school board. I believe we have a good public school system here in this county, and like anything else, we can improve. I feel like that it's so important that everybody has an equal opportunity to a safe environment in schools, to a nurturing environment. And we have to realize that one size does not fit all. All of our children are different. We all have different needs. And I'm very interested in seeing more school-based support services, of course, safety in schools, and also more to help prevent the opioid crisis and recognition as to how many children are affected by families that have addiction problems too. So there are just many needs that I feel like that we could improve upon. And I hope that you all will consider voting for us this time, and we're very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Chairman Harker.
Yeah, good evening. I want to first thank the Democrat Party and those associated with putting this event together. I really appreciate the opportunity to let all of our candidates have an opportunity to talk. You know, one of the most important things about democracy is for you to have an opportunity to hear what candidates' positions are and then make your decision that way. And you know, for a while there, we were denied that, but fortunately, you know, we came together. This opportunity is here tonight. My name is Harker. I'm running for re-election to Harker County School Board District 5. I have lived in Harker County all my life, with the exception of the time that I was away from college. I graduated from Harker County Public School, East Harker High School. Graduate of East Carolina University, have bachelor's, master's degree, and working on doctorate. I have been married to Sharon Harker, who is a Beaufort Town Commissioner for 37 years. I hope I got that right. And, it's 30 something. We have 3 children, and they all graduated from Harker County Public Schools. And I have a granddaughter who's in 2nd grade. So obviously I am vested from a community standpoint in Harker County schools. I want to see our students be very successful. I have more than 30 years of educational experience, teacher, curriculum developer, trainer, and administrator. I work here at Harker Community College. I'm Vice President for Workforce Development. Been here at college 27 years. I've been on Harker County School Board for, actually I was back in 2002. I was appointed to the board to fill an unexpired seat. Ms. Ellen Pene, some of you may have known Ms. Pene, who's a music teacher. Did not at that time seek to run for re-election. I did run in 2010, was elected and re-elected in 2014. I've been chairman for the last 2 years. And 2 years prior to that, vice chair. Now, my road to the board came from 19 years of being involved in school as a parent. My wife and I, then we rotated on Parent Advisory Council. I also served on strategic planning committee for the school system. I was the only non-employee that served on that committee, as well as their curriculum and policy committee. So my interest in being on the school board came from really being involved in the schools, and I saw that I could make, how I felt that I could make a even bigger difference by being involved. I am not a politician. I didn't do it for party affiliation. In fact, what attracted me to it was the fact that it was not for us. And I just really wanted to help kids. So I feel like over the last several years, I have been hopefully successful. We have a really good school system in Carter County, and certainly a lot more work to do. I am a champion for student achievement and improving graduation rates, and that's high on my list and will continue to be. I am a strong advocate for vocational training. I think that we do an excellent job. We have an 86% graduation rate. Our students last year received over $8 million in scholarships. So those students tracking to college, we do an excellent job. We're focusing on, and I have started an initiative, and I want you to help me continue to work on it. to work with our students who want to stay in our community, work in our community, and learn trades. I'm a fiscal watchdog. I believe that we need to be responsible with our dollars, but we certainly need to do what we need to make our schools great. And I understand the needs, goals, and concerns of our citizens. I've lived here, I work here, and I communicate with and interact with a lot of folks here. School safety is most important, teacher, staff, pay increases, and just working with our local funders and our state funders to advocate for additional funding. I hope that on November 6th or prior, during early voting, that you will vote to continue to keep me on the Carter County Schools. And I will guarantee that I will continue to work as hard as I have for the last 8 years to make our schools great and create every opportunity we can for our students. Our mission at Carter County Schools is to graduate all students. And I went there with that goal, and I will continue that. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first question this evening is for all of you. Do you support partisan school board elections? Yes or no, and why? We'll begin with Ms. Bond.
No, I don't support partisan school board elections. I know that our county voted in the early 90s to have nonpartisan elections, and I think it's really a shame that we didn't have the opportunity to vote again, though I would vote for nonpartisan school board elections. I believe that politics should stay out of the classroom. Was never been a part of my life as a teacher, and I don't think that we need to have it now. And I do think that if we have a Republican commissioners who fund our schools, that we should be independent in our thinking as to how we spend that money in the school system. It should not be in cahoots with the county commissioners who don't really know what's going on or what is most needed in the public schools.
Thank you. Ms. Parker.
Definitely nonpartisan. I feel like it's more beneficial to our school system not to have politics involved, to be voting for the person, and I share some of Lucy's concerns too about what were the motives for this change, and this is something that the county, the voters should decide on. This shouldn't be something that the county commissioners or the state legislature decides.
Thank you. Mr. Harker.
I do not support partisan school boards. I think that politics in schools is the last thing we need. We really need to be there with an open mind and with the goal of doing what's best for children, not for a party. That has been my position. I know that back in the early to mid-90s, this county voted not to, or voted for school board elections to be nonpartisan. I think it was 83% of the voters, and that should stand. Last year, I'm going by what I read in the paper, about 37 people, 7 commissioners and 30 people at the Republican convention voted to change elections. And that should concern everybody. That 37 people can change something that over 8,000 people voted to move in one direction. I think it's a way of hiding behind the issues. It's been said that having a DOR behind the name tells where you stand. And it really, to me, is offensive that someone would even characterize that. So I do not support partisan school boards.
I just wanted to say too that I believe the school board should be a cross-section of our community. Our children are a cross-section of our community, and our school board members should be too. That's very important.
Thank you. couple yes or no questions for you, just to speed things along, see where you stand. The first one is, do you support arming school teachers? Ms. Harker?
No.
Mr. Harker?
No.
Ms. Baum?
No.
The next question is, does the local teaching supplement need to be increased? Mr. Harker?
Definitely.
Ms. Baum?
Oh, for sure.
Definitely.
Thank you. I have a question from the audience for Mr. Harker. What are the long-term needs of the school system? Minute and a half, if possible.
Well, as you know, we have 2 schools that are overcrowded, West Park and Georgia. So we have facility needs. And we really need to implement a plan to address those. Also, recruiting teachers has been a challenge for us, and a lot of it has to do with pay. Our supplement is right at 5%, it's double digits, and also County is double digits in Creighton County. So it's hard to get teachers to come here for the pay that we're able to pay them. And then third, we are hearing from local business. Back in November, we formed a business advisory council to hear from local businesses their needs for employees. Because our biggest employee pool is going to be our graduates, and they're going to have an impact on our business. So we need to really look at vocational and technical education and train those students that are not attracted to go away to university or community college for academics, and train them to be available to work in our local businesses. Now, we've enacted some things to do that in partnership with the community college. We've added several trades programs, vocational, electrical, welding, plumbing, all to train our local workforce, working with our local boat builders to train individuals and students that want to work there. And then this past August, we opened an early college in partnership here at the community college, which has a track for vocation, also has a track for academics. But those kinds of things are just something, you're right, I could take more than a minute and a half. We have a good school system, but we have a lot of challenges. And I believe you need experience matters, and you need someone on the school board, like the 3 of us sitting up here, who are experienced educators and can help address those needs.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for all of you. It is common knowledge that the arts are underfunded in the state of North Carolina. If elected, what would you do to alleviate this issue? We'll start with Ms. Baum.
Well, I also believe that the arts, music and art are very important in our schools. I think it makes our schools well-rounded. I would listen to the people who come forward and speak about the kinds of arts that we still need in our school. There are some schools that need maybe a chorus teacher. We definitely need to keep them, and I would advocate for the funds to keep them.
Thank you. Ms. Parker?
I definitely think that we need to emphasize the arts in schools, particularly music and art, and also PE. But I went to school at a time when it was very important to participate in like school courses, and the love of music and what I learned then is just carried through for my entire life, and I think it helps you so much as far as becoming a well-rounded person. And also, music or art might be the thing that keeps a particular student interested in going to school. So I really feel strongly that it's a very important area of our education.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been a strong advocate of the arts, sports, music. I believe a student should have a holistic educational experience, if that is the way they choose. Last year, House Bill 13 would have been a bill that would have removed funding for the arts, but you know, with the help of a lot of you advocating for us, that didn't happen, but it's certainly still a viable bill. So I would advocate very strongly to keep teachers in those positions and keep those programs in our schools that we did last year, and certainly work with our new legislators over here to make sure they understand we're not going to need that type of legislation in our schools.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is for Mrs. Bond. Given your background of working with children through social services, Head Start, and mental health, what ideas or programs would you like to see in Carteret County that would address improving the mental health of our students?
Well, I think that it begins early. So I think a lot of attention needs to be paid in the preschool programs. I believe in supporting preschools in our county and across the state. I think that programs that will make children feel that they are a part of the school, anti-bullying projects, for example. I know the schools just did, in August, did a great job at mental health training for teachers. I just think sometimes we forget about educating the whole child. And really, it begins early, and it should go through school. Testing is, academics are important. You have to have some testing to find out where children are. But, you know, they don't all start in the same place. And we need to support their growth in all those areas. So I would support programs that, that support helping children grow in all of their ways that they need to develop.
Thank you. Next question is for all of you, and it is in two parts. What can the county do better to attract quality teachers and attract more minority teachers? We'll begin with Ms. Parker.
Well, first, particularly vigorous recruitment efforts. I also feel that increasing the teacher supplement is crucial. We need to increase the teacher supplement at least to more like the state average. Another area that I think came more into recognition was after the hurricane was housing, which housing is an issue, but even more so since the hurricane. So I feel like addressing those problems would help some, but we really need to make an extra special effort to make contact with different universities that we can help promote our schools to, and particularly to increase the diversity in our teachers and administrative staff.
Thank you. I know this is something that you've been dealing with for some time.
It has. So I'll address the diversity first. We do need to have a stronger diversity in our schools. When I grew up, went to East Carteret, we went through the whole season. I had teachers that looked like me, and I looked up to them. And if I ever got out of line, it never happened though. I'm sure they would have put me back in line. But that's very important. We have been working with a local ad hoc committee to attempt to recruit more minority teachers. And the issue of teachers, period, sort of falls over in that too. One is pay, and the other is housing. And so teachers, a new teacher out of school will make about $35,000. Come to Harker County, it's hard to find a place that they can afford. And then our supplement is half of what these surrounding counties are. So to address that, you know, we have, for all but 1 year of the 8 years I've been on the school board, we have asked the county to double our supplement. Haven't had any success yet. But if you send me back, we'll keep going to them. I promise you that. The other is we're working with groups and state boards credit unions, teacher housing program to help address some of the needs. There are our two biggest needs, housing and payment. And we do need to have more diversity. We do not, as we sit here today, we don't have any principals that are minorities. We have one assistant principal and probably a couple of handful of teachers. We certainly want to always hire the best, but we've got to give young, out of school, wanting to learn teachers an opportunity to grow to the best. And we have a really strong professional development plan in place and a mentoring plan. So every new teacher that we hire, we pair up with an experienced teacher. But that's two issues, that pay and the housing have certainly been a deterrent to recruiting teachers overall.
Thank you.
Yes, I believe that diversity in our school leaders is important. It's important for children to look out there and see teachers who look like them and administrators that look like them. They need to look up to people who look like them, and not just those that are in the cafeteria, although that's fine too. But I think it does need to be, we do need to do a better job. I was subbing over at Moorhead Elementary one day, and this little Hispanic boy was in my class, and he said, "Hey, you know what? You look like me." And I said, "Well, we do look kind of alike." And so, I mean, it just struck me that I knew that was important, but I really felt it when he said that. So I do believe that it's important. As far as recruiting teachers, this is a great place to live, maybe not during the hurricane, but I think that housing is important, and I think it is expensive. I think our supplement is a very big deal. I think the counties, Craven and Onslow County, I think Onslow County is twice as much as we are, and Craven is more than we are too. So I think it's important to raise that supplement for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Ms. Harker. What do you see as the county's biggest education problem, and how do you plan on solving it?
I'm trying to think of what is the biggest problem. I'm not exactly sure what would be the biggest problem, but could I just mention a couple of things that I think are important? I feel like, I guess because I work with people who have dropped out of high school, I feel like that is a very important issue, is to further take a look at the reasons why people have left school. So that's something that's particularly important to me. Another area would be, we need more school-based services. We need more social workers, and we need more school nurses, as well as counselors and psychologists. But I really feel like the presence of social workers and school nurses could help so much. Well, it could, besides just helping the students, it would also help the teachers too, because I'm sure that they're having to do a lot of social work and nursing type duties. But this helps to identify problems so much, not just at an early age, but all through school. So I feel like those two areas are areas I'd really like to see some improvements in.
Thank you. Before we get to your closing statements, the first one is, do you support school expansion to rid campuses of classroom trailers? Mr. Harker.
I do. I mentioned earlier that one of our biggest needs is facility expansion. We had the opportunity to expand classrooms at Litalien a couple of years ago. We were not able to convince commissioners to fund that, and we had to buy 5 mobile units. Mobile units are certainly a good fill-in, but they're not a permanent solution. They don't last that long to be a permanent solution. So I support expansion at our schools. We have several of our schools that are at capacity. Certainly the western part of our county has a lot of growth. those schools. White Oak, we just added an additional 14 classrooms, and with the growth down in that area this year, they're already almost at capacity. So yes, I certainly do not want students to be in mobile units. I want them to be in nice, clean, with technology classrooms, where the learning environment is conducive to them being the best that they can be in the classroom and learning what we are set out to teach them.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that we do need to expand those schools. I've taught in schools where there were plenty of trailers before, and I know that sometimes we need them for a temporary situation, but in the long haul, honestly, they feel disjointed from the rest of the school. There's a lot of going back and forth from the main school to the trailers. I just think it's better to have that long-range goal of trying to secure additions where they are needed.
Thank you.
Yes, the mobile units should just be temporary resources, and particularly when you look at a county where the population is increasing so much in one area of the county, the need is very apparent that we need expansions, like Perry was talking about at Croatan and at West particularly. So these should just be temporary types of units, and also they make you feel really separate from school, and I know teachers feel that way too when they're in a mobile unit for a long time.
Thank you. Final question this evening comes from the audience. Do you support preschool for all? Ms. Bond.
Yes, I do. I think it's very important.
Ms. Parker.
Definitely, I think it's a very important part of a child's education.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I do. I think it's very important to start kids on a solid educational foundation, and preschool research is certainly indicated it does that. So I do support it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all for staying this evening. We will now listen to your closing statements, and we'll once again begin with Ms. Bond.
Okay. You know, I thought about being a teacher, my time in public school, and I thought about the kinds of things that I learned from my students and from my colleagues that I think would help on the board. And I think that Beth, Perry, and myself are educators, and I think we can bring a lot of good things to the boardroom. So I'm just going to kind of read them because I made a list. Listen and communicate. Understand the needs of those around you. Know where they are and where they need to go. Study what you need to know and see what needs to be done. Collaborate with others and make a good plan, but be flexible and open-minded. Be positive but firm in your outlook. Have high expectations, but remember that good change takes time. Watch the budget, but don't skip on things that will make a real difference in the lives of those children or your teachers. Be respectful when you're trying to make a point, and be kind when you disagree. I think that's important on the board. And always, as I was always taught, think before you act. You know, and you have to ask yourself, is it the best for our students? Is it the best thing to do for our students before you do it? Thank you.
I wanted to end by saying how important I think public education is, and the power that public education has to lift a person up and to lift a community up. So this is the main reason that I'm interested in running for school board. The other thing I wanted to say was that the people that I'm sharing this stage with, these are extremely community-minded people. There's no one that's self-serving. There's no hidden agendas. We're just people that care about children, and we care about this community. And I feel like that this recently the hurricane has brought out the best of a lot of our characteristics as far as the county, and there's so much good that's been done, and so many people have tried to help, but it's also magnified a lot of the problems that we have in this county, and that's on my mind a whole lot as far as poverty and it's particularly housing issues. And I feel like as a school board member, it would be very important to be very knowledgeable and of each area of the county, and I would want to go and visit all the schools and get to know the staff and to know the students also. I think that'd be extremely important as far as developing educational policy for the county. Thank you.
Thank you, and again, I want to thank the Democratic Party for putting this event on, and all of you for being out here tonight and listening to us. I hope that we have said something to make you vote for us. Look, our children and families are depending on us to create opportunities for them so that they can be productive citizens. Our schools are a major economic driver in our county. A lot of folks move here because of our outstanding school system. And they are expected, families in our community, to have board members that serve on the school board, that have that as their primary interest and commitment to do what's best for students. Now, as I said earlier, there are those that would want to make this election about Democrat versus Republican. But this election is about, do you want an experienced person sitting on your board, someone who can navigate the challenges that our school system is going to face, someone who brings that experience and leadership to the board. Look, after Hurricane Florence, our school system is facing $15 million in damage. We have over 600 students displaced, and almost 70 of our staff lost everything. And to navigate that, you need someone, I submit, you need someone who has proven leadership and experience. Park County Schools is a big outfit. $90 million budget, 8,500 students, 1,200 employees. Again, I submit you need board members that have the experience to lead. I ask you to check my record, 8 years, and make your decision based on that. Not on what others think you think that decision should be made on. I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Probably the greatest honor I've had in my adult life has been to represent the families and the students of Carter County. A county that has given so much to me and has given me the opportunity to give back. Thank you for your opportunity to serve. And again, I ask for your vote.
Come back with our county commissioner candidates. chair. You can't even see. There you go. Our next section will involve candidates for Carteret County Board of Commissioners. We have 4 candidates with us this evening. Caprice Pratt from District 1, Katie Tomberlin from District 2, Mr. Gerald Godette from District 3, and Mr. Dennis Litalien from District 6. We will begin, as usual, with opening statements up to 2 minutes. We will start with Ms. Pratt.
Me being here tonight boils down to one main truth. I love Carteret County. I came here to visit a friend in June of 2003, and it was love at first sight. So by that July, I was a permanent resident. Since that time, I've raised 2 children, went from being the lowest paid laborer at a local landscape company to managing the entire maintenance division of that same company. I earned my degree in horticulture and then went out on my own, and I'm now self-employed. During all of that, the only political involvement I took part in was voting. Running for county commissioner was nowhere on my agenda until I started seeing and hearing how the people of my beloved county were being treated by current elected officials. I decided I wanted to give you all a choice to be genuinely heard, a choice to have someone truly fight to protect our county from environmental dangers, a choice to have someone advocate for our teachers and students, a choice to have someone who wants to improve our quality of life, a choice for civility and compassion. Thank you for considering me as a choice.
Ms. Tomberlin.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Katie Tomberlin, and I'm running for County Commissioner in District 2. I chose to run because, like many of you sitting here tonight, I felt like I wasn't being heard. I was raised here, my husband was raised here, and we made the conscious decision to raise our children here. I want my children to have the same clean waters, the same job opportunities, and the same quality of education that I received here in Carteret County. I feel like it's time to shake things up a bit. It's time for some positive change here in Carteret County. I am here, I'm young, I'm energetic, and I care about everything. I have been involved in politics on the local and state level for years, and I feel like when you are elected, you don't only represent the people, you also have to be there for the people and listen to them. And we might not always agree on the path to take, but together we'll come up with a solution to move forward. So I thank you for your time, and thank you Carteret County Democratic Party for hosting this event, and thank you Roger for emceeing. And I hope y'all vote for me in November.
Mr. Godette, 2 minutes.
My name is Gerald. I'm a candidate for County Commissioner, District 3, and I am here young and energetic. I have lived here all my life, and I have attended Carteret County school systems. I have a degree from North Carolina State University. I have my master's degree unfinished, and I am passionate about people. And the reason that I'm passionate about people is that people have been passionate about me. And over these years, as I served my community, and I served my community as a mentor for young people, young athletes. I have served my community on the board of directors for the Carteret Community Theater. I've served my community as a Rotarian, president of the Rotary Club. I've served my community on just different ways in this county. And as I looked around over the years, I noticed that things were not going in the way that I felt that they should be going. This county is a wonderful, beautiful county, and I assure you that if I am voted in, I will increase that supplement, Mr. Harker. Don't worry about it. I just believe that the problems that we're having with our waters, better clean water, with our land, littering, everything is related. I believe that the jobs, and I've walked around this county since I've been running for commissioner, and I've talked to people, Republicans, Democrats, Christians, non-Christians, those who care about you, those who don't care about you. And the thing that I have heard more than anything else is that there is a jobs problem and there is a health problem. And I just believe that I am passionate about people, and I intend to change this very issue, or these very issues in this county. And I thank you for having me here today.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank you first for being here. I'd like to thank the Carteret County Democratic Party for supporting this event. I'd like to recognize one person here. The other night I was out at another event and I ran into Litalien. And she mentioned that she had a special friend with her. And I'd like everybody here, and I'm not sure, Litalien, you might want to correct me. I know the lady's name, but I don't know her age.
Oh, her age? Today, Hazel Bird is 96 years old. And she wanted to celebrate it by ending it at this meeting, so here.
Welcome and happy birthday.
Well, I thought it was important to share that with everybody. This is a special night, I think, in a lot of ways. Many of you know that there had originally been a candidates forum that was planned for this evening that included all the candidates. And the other side decided they would decline from attending. One of the reasons why I decided to run for office is because I believe in democracy. I owe everything I am to this country. And I had the privilege of serving this country as a Marine for 23 years. And you know, the thing is that what I learned by serving my country as I moved into working in civilian life, becoming a small business owner, a lot of different life experiences I had, kind of over time I suddenly realized that, you know what, public service, I'm not done with public service yet, and public service is not done with me. And I have the good fortune of being married to the first vice chair of the Democratic Party. Everybody who knows her knows she's a little fireball. And she started getting me involved with going to meetings and so forth, commissioner meetings. And I started to see what was going on in those meetings. And a lot of it doesn't necessarily reflect what we're all about. And an example of that, perfect example, is the fact that they chose not to be here this evening. That they didn't give the citizens of this community an opportunity to ask them questions, to challenge them with ideas. And in fact, what we found is when we go to these meetings, oftentimes, if anybody even raises a simple question, they take it as a challenge. They take it as being blasted, or it doesn't really matter, but the whole thing is the attitude is, it's about us, it's not about you. And you know, public service is about people. It's about working to improve the quality of life for all our citizens. You know, I'm a Democrat, I'm proud to be a Democrat, but I don't care whether you vote for me or not. If I get elected county commissioner, I'm going to be a county commissioner who serves the public. And that's what we should expect of all of our public servants. You know, that's as American as apple pie and Chevrolet. And you know, I don't know why, but it seems like in so many ways these days we've lost that bubble. So I will tell you this, I've had a lot of different life experiences. I've never run for public office before. But I spent 40 years of my adult life leading and managing, and I was trained in the Marines. And my philosophy is this: this should be about people and not partisanship. And I was taught in the Marine Corps that there's two things that you do. These are the two things that are essential to serving. It's getting the job done and looking out for people. That's exactly what I intend to do as your county commissioner.
Our county is still suffering from one of the worst natural disasters to hit our area in quite some time. So we're going to begin with some yes or no questions just to set some benchmarks, okay? Yes or no? Does human activity exacerbate global climate change? Dennis?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Godette?
Why? Yes.
Ms. Tomberlin?
Yes.
Ms. Pratt?
Emphatic yes.
Okay. Do you believe that future storms will be stronger because of climate change? Ms. Pratt?
Yes.
Ms. Tomberlin?
Obviously.
Mr. Godette?
Yes.
Mr. Litalien?
Absolutely.
Would you support a county study on the feasibility of upgrading existing county properties, existing buildings, schools, or etc., to be able to withstand a Cat 5 hurricane in order to be used as a public shelter? Mr. Litalien?
Absolutely.
Mr. Godette?
I think it's a must.
Ms. Tomberlin?
I can't believe it hasn't been done yet.
Ms. Pratt?
Yes.
Moving to the first question. What should the county commissioners do about establishing safe public shelters for future storms? We'll begin with Ms. Pratt.
Will you read it one more time? Will you read the question?
What should county commissioners do about public shelters, either building new ones, developing existing properties, or providing public shelters during future storms?
I think that what we just touched on, a study needs to be done. A plan needs to be put into place so that the disaster that we just went through, the people in our county won't suffer as much if we have a plan in place. And I think that this go around, we weren't prepared because there was not a lot of forethought. I think if we plan for the future, then it will help immensely.
Thank you. Ms. Tomberlin?
I think that there absolutely needs to be a shelter built that can be a multi-use building that can be used possibly for civic functions, community events when it's not in use as a shelter. I can't believe that we live in Hurricane Alley and this has not been something that has been thought of before. A majority of the people in the county live in mobile homes or apartments. A majority of the people in the county that live in these places are paycheck to paycheck like myself, and we could not afford to leave, so there has to be some safe shelter for people like us.
Look, I think that what this issue comes down to is money. And I believe that the county commissioners have to be good stewards of the monies of this county. But a shelter to withstand a category 4 or 5 a storm is desperately needed. There wasn't a plan. I even believe, and Mr. Harker may or may not agree with me, but I even believe that our school system, our schools, maybe not all, I think we have what, 18 schools in this county? Right. But even our schools need to be prepared, better able to withstand at least a category 3 storm. This makes no sense.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Litalien?
I keep finding these guys a tough act to follow. Here's what I would think, and once again, having been a Marine, you spend a lot of time thinking and planning for what you're going to do, what your mission happens to be. And in this particular case, I think the mission is, we were very fortunate in a lot of ways. Now, a lot of people got hurt out there, they lost their homes, things have been very difficult for a lot of people. But it's not too soon to be thinking about the lessons learned that came out of this particular event. Because this event and others of its same type are going to happen again. And we don't know what we're going to face next time. Will it be another storm like Florence? Will it be a monster that rips through like Michael did through Florida and Georgia? We don't know, but we need to have some sort of a plan. We need to be thinking about things like, how do we make sure our communities are alerted that the word is communicated to everybody who needs to know what's going on before the storm gets here? What resources are going to be available both during and after the storm? And there's so much to think about because there's so much pre-planning that you have to do regarding things like resources and transportation and services such as EMS and so on and so forth. So it's a big, big thing to chew on. But while the memories are fresh, what I would propose, and a shelter, reinforced shelters are part of this as well as an actual evacuation plan. If you're going to tell people We have a mandatory evacuation plan. You ought to have the resources to support getting people out of here. And in particular, those people who may not be fortunate enough or have the wherewithal or happen to be elderly or disabled, who for whatever reason just can't get out of here. We need to do something about this. I propose that we form a working group, led at the county level, and I'm not talking about the commissioners or the mayors of the municipalities necessarily. I'm talking about people who would typically be the ones who would do a lot of the planning, the town manager types, the people involved in services, the people involved in emergency services, and so forth, who can get together, do an analysis of what they did well and what they did wrong, and put things in place where we have an executable plan that will help to ensure public safety the next time.
Our next question involves housing, which is another major issue after this storm. And the question is, how would you encourage developers, investors, and community leaders, and I'll add, and government agencies, to build and invest in this area to increase affordable housing? Ms. Tomberlin.
Well, being that we have a tax rate on property that's the lowest in the state, I don't see why it would be an issue to bring people in to build more affordable housing. In Carteret County, the average rent is $847 a month, and the average mortgage averages to about $1,300 a month. That's a lot of money in rent. And all these mobile homes, like in my area down 9 Foot Road, they're older. They're not going to withstand too many more years. So we desperately need places for people to be able to live that they can afford. I don't see why there aren't incentives in place. I don't really have an answer to that.
Thank you. Mr. Godette.
Having been on the Moyer City Planning Board, we have had to decide many times, in many cases, where you can build and where you cannot build, and why. And part of this has to do with, again, money. How many units can you put per square foot on a particular footprint? And I believe that incentives is the way to go. Incentivizing these developers to, well, I got kind of like voted off the board because of my, ideas, but incentivizing these developers to build better units, more but better units, is the way to go. And this is 31 cents per $100 is our tax rate now. It's great to flaunt that, but then what are you going to do? What money are you going to use then to incentivize anybody?
Thank you. Mr. Litalien.
I agree very much with what Gerald was saying regarding incentives. You know, this issue regarding affordable housing has been something that this county has dealt with many, many times over in the past. And as an example, former mayor of Beaufort, a lot of you know this gentleman, Dr. John Coswell, when he was mayor, he helped run a program to help develop some more affordable housing in the county and within Beaufort as well. So this has been an ongoing challenge. I think incentives would be very, very important. Maybe there would be more opportunity given the fact that so many of the lower income housing that's available here in the county has been damaged. Perhaps that will provide some additional incentives. But I'll tell you this problem is probably not going to go away anytime soon. Part of the issue has to do with the fact that wages are so extremely low in this county. It's the reason why we're losing our vitality. We lose a lot of young people who have to go elsewhere to work. The average income right now in this county is roughly between $30,000 and $35,000 per year. Down east where I live, the district that I intend to represent, it's less than half of that. People are hurting in a lot of ways. And I think this particular storm that we just encountered really help bring that to the surface. And hopefully, we will start looking and recognizing the fact that this is a problem that we all share. We're all stakeholders of what happens here in this county. And I think it's about time we realize that. It's not about D's, it's not about ours, it's about we.
Gerald took the words out of my mouth earlier, so I would just parrot what Gerald had to say about incentives.
Thank you. The next question is concerning jobs. What role does the county commissioners play, if any, in bringing jobs to Carteret County? And what should they do, if anything, in order to assist that? Mr. Godette.
Well, I am told that there is an economic development plan lying around someplace. If it is, I would like that plan to be pulled out and that we can look at this plan and better develop this plan. And the county commissioners have a vital role in doing that. The county commissioners of at least this county, of the 100 counties in this state, have a lot of power. And they can incentivize businesses to ensure that we have better jobs. But look, jobs is also linked. Everything is linked. Jobs is also linked to education. There's also got to be. I would support as a county commissioner increasing that supplement that we were talking about as a means of somehow, I don't know the complete answer, but as somehow changing or adjusting the curriculum in the school system that might, and some of that is being done now, but more of that needs to be done. And I think the county commissioners can play a vital role.
Thank you. Mr. Litalien.
A couple of years ago, we had an economic development council here that kind of got into disarray. And in the last year, a reorganization took place where now the replacement for the EDC is kind of a combination of a private and public enterprise. It's led by a guy by the name of Don Kirkman. And I think there's some good things that will probably come out of that. And the reason why I say that is they do have a plan, a basic plan, related to increasing things like broadband expansion, maybe doing some increasing of capabilities in places where you might be able to bring in some light industry. They're encouraging existing businesses to do some expansion. I think it's really important that we recognize the fact that one of the great resources we have here are all these marine labs and marine fisheries, state fisheries and so forth. I think there's a real opportunity there in regard to looking at what we can do in the future related to 21st century sustainable jobs in industries like fisheries. And as an example, I've been a long proponent of aquaculture. I think that's something that could really, really have a significant impact here economically for lots of people. So I think we need to incentivize that. I give this community college an enormous amount of credit. They have a tremendous aquaculture program here that's creating opportunities. Here's the other part though, and this has to do with what the commissioners can or can't do. Some people think the best thing about this county is that we have the lowest tax rate in the entire 100 counties in North Carolina. And that's all well and good. But there are times where you need to look at things in terms of investment. And you can't grow our economy locally unless you're willing to put some sort of investment into our economic future. And that's one of the things that they've been very, very reluctant to do. I don't mind squeezing blood out of a nickel. I get that. I think that's an important thing to do. I think taxpayers deserve the best bang they can get for their buck. But you also need to have some kind of vision in regards to, it's great to talk about economic expansion and development. It's great to have these things in place and ideas, you've got to have some horsepower behind those things, and that's where investment comes in, and that's where the commissioners come in.
Thank you. Ms. Pratt?
I recently read a few studies that were based specifically on this topic. And they all came to the conclusion that when employers are looking for places to build, they look for areas that have a good quality of life. As in services, public transportation, parks, sidewalks, because that's what people look for when they want to move to an area. So if we invest in building those things up, it will attract better employers to our community.
Thank you.
Because I'm going last, I get to piggyback off of everybody else. All of these things are related to one another that we're discussing tonight. Our economy is based on the waters. If we don't have clean waters, then our economy goes down with our commercial fishermen and our tourism. We have this opioid epidemic, which attacks our workforce and has made it harder to find reliable workers in a lot of the industries. I agree with Caprice that we need more incentives in our county to bring employers here to want to build new businesses. Piggybacking off of the cost of living here, it's hard if you don't have a really, really good paying job to make it in Carteret County. So I think that all these incentives are great. We need to bring in employers that are willing to give benefits, good benefits, and have steady jobs. And thank you.
Our next question is, in the 2016 Community Health Needs Assessment, which is put together by the County Health Department and Carteret General Hospital, the leading community concern was access to mental health treatment and substance abuse. This marks the 14th, say that again, 14th consecutive year that this issue has been number one. If elected, will you pledge to address this problem? Mr. Litalien.
Down east where I live, there's a facility, it's called Pratt Health. Pratt Health has been there for a number of years. It appears that sometime in the next 3 years, they're going to be relocating that facility to Beaufort. And after doing a little running around trying to find out some information, I discovered that facility was bequeathed by Duke University to the county back about, 20 years ago, Tina, maybe, something like that. So that facility is going to be vacant. It's a 114-bed facility. And I think one of the real challenges, now folks here in this room, a lot of people have been involved with the mental health issue. They've been involved with the problems that we're having with substance abuse and the opioid crisis. You know, this past year, our commissioners decided to throw a bit of money into the pot to open up a 16-bed facility in Onslow County. Our county is 70,000 people. If I recall correctly, I believe that Onslow County is about 120, 130,000 people. That's a 16-bed facility. Anybody here think that's a Band-Aid? So what my thought is this, is there's a serious need out there here in North Carolina, not just here in this county, but in other counties as well. Why couldn't we look at putting an investment into that facility, that county-owned facility, and perhaps develop our own mental health, substance abuse facility where we could seriously address our own problems as well as possibly provide some regional support for other people. And I talked to a couple of different people, including a clinical psychologist here in town who's been involved with similar programs in places like Florida. This is an entirely doable thing. But you know, to do something, you've got to want to do something. And the incentive is, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm elected, I'm going to push for this plan about hurricanes and about planning for that. I'm also going to push for this facility because, among other things, it would be good for this community, it would be good for the public health of our citizens, And on top of that, it would also help to ensure that my down east community, where people are already struggling for jobs, might actually have a few jobs open to them.
If you will forgive me, I found a note from a member of the audience that goes with this question. So I would like to also add to the mental health substance abuse, they also asked about the suicide rate. If you want to include that in your answer or can, or I left that out. Dennis, I'm sorry. So the question now is, if elected, will you pledge to address the mental health, substance abuse, and suicide problem in our county?
Yes. And I have many family members that suffer from severe mental health issues. So I know firsthand how hard it is for them and their families. And it's desperately needed. And I have a good friend that sister's committed suicide, so I've experienced all of these things firsthand and absolutely pledged.
Thank you. Ms. Tomberlin.
I myself suffer from depression and anxiety. 2 of my 3 children also are diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Mental health is a very, very important thing that we need to be able to talk about. The stigma behind it needs to be broken. There's nothing wrong with asking people for help. We need an in-county facility that children can go to when they're feeling suicidal. My 16-year-old daughter has lost several friends in the past year to suicide. It is a major problem here in Carteret County. And we need more presence, more people listening. These children and these young adults and these adults need to know that there is somebody there for them. So I definitely support having an in-county mental health and substance abuse facility.
Well, the short answer is yes. In the studies that I've participated in, we've studied the psychology, the biology, and the methodology of the human psyche. And this is a real problem. And I believe that if we were to just do a survey, we would find that many, if not most people, have some sort of relationship or association with someone who has had mental issues and even suicidal issues. They affect many aspects of the community, particularly jobs. So I support definitely an in-county facility, whether it be the facility the Litalien has spoken of or another facility. Yes, absolutely.
Next question is in 2 parts. Do you support or oppose offshore drilling? Do you support or oppose the expansion of clean energy, wind, solar, tidal energy? We'll begin with Ms. Pratt.
I do not support offshore drilling, and I support clean energy. Those are the 2 questions.
That's correct. Thank you. Ms. Tomberlin.
I absolutely oppose seismic blasting or drilling off our coast. I believe that clean energy is the future, and that is a good way to bring jobs to Carteret County and to maintain the beautiful area that we live in.
Thank you. Mr. Godette.
Offshore drilling would have a definite effect on these 834 square miles of water that we have around this wonderful county that we have. This is our life source in many ways, and it is absolutely crazy, or would absolutely be crazy, to agree to offshore drilling, seismic blasting, off the coast of North Carolina. And clean energy, especially with the technologies that's happening now, is getting better and more and less expensive. I do support that.
Thank you. Mr. Litalien.
I recently became a grandfather for the second time. I have a newborn baby granddaughter who was born just before Hurricane Florence. You know, that kind of thing, I'm sure all of you who have grandkids, you know what I'm talking about. It makes you think about things. It makes you think about what you want to leave behind, you know, for your kids, your grandkids, and so forth. I think one of the greatest legacies we have is our land, our air, our water. These things have helped sustain us and those who came before us for generations. I think it's a moral imperative that we do the same for our kids, our grandkids, and future generations. I don't think there should be any argument whatsoever. This is not a political issue. It's a people issue. So I oppose offshore drilling, and I strongly support renewable energy resources, and I think that it's time for this country to adopt a clean energy plan.
Our next question is, do you feel you can work with the other side, soon, meaning the government? Can you reach out and try to find some common ground? Ms. Tomberlin.
I think it's good to have opposing views. That when you have opposing views, then you have to look at things from a different perspective, and you have to take yourself out of your usual way of thinking. You have to look at things the other way, and you have to meet somewhere in the middle and work together towards a solution. I absolutely have no problem with working with anybody that might think different than me, because we need to move forward as a county, and it needs to stop being about us versus them. It needs to be about we.
Mr. Godette.
Well, my position on this issue is, when we start thinking about just us, we then rob ourselves of what can be. Because when two minds come together, and as I've been canvassing over this county, I have met with, as I said, Republicans and Democrats, and I have stood and discussed this very issue back and forth. By the end of the conversation, we both agreed to disagree, but the two minds have got to come together. So yes, I would do as much as I can to work with those from the other side. But I would be very, very emphatic about what I believe in.
Thank you.
I'm going to steal a line here from Roger Eaton, our moderator tonight. I heard him speak at a candidates forum a couple of years ago, and a similar question was asked to him about that, and he said he would win them over with his charm and good looks. Seeing that I like both of those, here's what I believe. You know, once again, I would focus on the fact that we're there to serve the people of this county. It's not about being a commissioner. It's not about being in charge. It's not about power. It's not about any of those things. And I would emphasize that at every opportunity. Now, I will tell you this, because I'm a Marine, I grew up a team player. But in that team environment, when you felt something was wrong or that something could be done better, it was your responsibility to stand up and say so. And I don't think we should ever lose sight of that fact. Now, I've been a little tough on those guys a couple of times for things that they've done and failed to do. And I won't apologize for that ever. But I am more than willing to work with anybody who has sensible ideas that are good for our community, that are going to move us forward. If they're not, I am going to gauge what the public says and what they're telling us. And as an example, this offshore drilling issue is a very, very common one. I have not met one person during the course of my campaign that I've talked to, Republican, Democrat, Independent, apple, banana, orange, whatever it happened to be, who didn't think that offshore drilling is not a good idea and that it would really impact what we have here. So on those types of issues, I will always stand firm, but I'm always willing to work with the other side, and hopefully, and I say this hopefully, that they will be adult enough to be able to do the same with me.
I think it's absolutely essential to be able to work with someone that you have opposing views with. Our country is too divided, and if you don't try to work with the opposite party, it's just going to get worse. So I would absolutely work with the other side.
Thank you. Our next question involves the partisan school board issue. Do you support having partisan school board elections? And if not, what remedy would you have to change that? We'll start with Mr. Godette.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that politics belongs in our schools, first of all. And it is my understanding that there is a process that is involved with changing this issue. The way it was changed and the way it got to be where it is now was done pretty much without the consent of some of the board members, and certainly without the consent of the public. But there is a process that one can be involved in to change this issue, and I believe it is it has to go back through the legislature through a resolution of sorts that would turn this in the opposite direction. Whatever that process is, I would be for doing just that.
Thank you. Mr. Litalien.
One of the main reasons why I decided to run for county commissioner was this issue. I believe we should keep politics out of our schools. I believe the decision that they made to change this, 7 county commissioners overturned the vote of an entire county. I think that's one of the most undemocratic things I've seen in my lifetime. I think it's an embarrassment to this county. This was done for purely political reasons. It has nothing to do with improving the quality of education of our students. And I will always be vehemently opposed to this particular issue. Now, the problem that we face is it's become state law because they ran this thing through the legislature with the assistance of our current representative and state senator. So to overturn something like this would be a very, very difficult thing to accomplish. But I will tell you this. Anybody here in this room, if you have an opinion on something and I have a different opinion, you know how we solve that in America? You put it on the ballot. That's the American way. And they failed to recognize that. Anybody who fails to recognize that basic principle of what our country is about has no business being a county commissioner.
You're here. Thank you. Ms. Pratt.
I oppose a partisan school board, and as said earlier by the Board of Education candidates, politics should not be part of that process. And I think that the citizens need to be involved and that it should be put on the ballot so they can vote for it like they did in the 90s.
Thank you. Ms. Tomberlin.
I completely oppose having partisan school boards. I'm the child of an educator. I went to college to be an educator myself. Education is very important to my family. I have 3 children currently in the Carteret County Public School System. It is about the kids, not politics. It's not about an R or a D. It's about curriculum. It's about schools being safe. It has absolutely nothing to do with your party affiliation. It has to do with the kids. I do not believe in backdoor politics, and it was a very sneaky way that they passed this through consent agenda. So I absolutely oppose partisan school boards.
Current Board of Commissioners lists as one of their accomplishments that Carteret County has the lowest tax rate in the state. Is that a good thing? Mr. Litalien?
I think I partially answered that earlier. Look, I think we all, I don't think anybody, Democrat, Republican, what have you, wants their taxes raised any more than they need to. But you know, just as an example, we are 100 out of 100 counties in North Carolina. If you bumped up the tax rate a couple of cents to help provide services, I'm talking about human services, health services and things of that nature, do you really think that would be a detrimental thing to our county? I mean, seriously, why wouldn't we be considering these types of things? We've already talked about a lot of this stuff. We have a situation right now where we have severe mental health problems within our community. We have substance abuse problems in our community. We have domestic violence problems that occur in our community. We have poverty in our community. And a lot of these things are simply not being addressed. They need to be addressed. Just letting things go the way they've been going isn't going to get us anywhere other than we're going to continue to see people to suffer. I can't recall what exactly the rate was, but if I recall, about 2 years ago, I was reading up on the suicide rate. You know, this county is 70,000 people, and at one point I think we were 10th in the state for the number of suicides that were occurring, and we were going up with a bullet. I mean, think about that. So, you know, low tax rates are great, but there are human needs that we all face here as a community. Every one of us, if I talk to each and every one of the individuals in this room, you would tell me about situations or circumstances that you're facing, or either somebody you love is facing, the challenges that we face here in this community. We should not be, Eli Wiesel said, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. I think that's what we're seeing a lot of times here in this county. I don't think those commissioners are necessarily bad people. I just don't think they necessarily have a lot of empathy for a lot of other folks than the ones who vote for them or support them.
Thank you. Ms. Pratt?
I don't think that having the lowest tax rate is an achievement. And I'm self-employed and I pay a lot of taxes, and I never complain because I live in a society where I want children to go to school. I want to drive on safe bridges, and I want potholes to be filled. So I think that sometimes we have to raise taxes to be able to do those things efficiently.
Thank you. Ms. Tomberlin?
Like I stated earlier, we're a paycheck to paycheck family, so I darn sure don't need my taxes to go up. But realistically, I'm also a person that thinks everything through. I want my kids to go to good schools. I want to drive on good roads. We need good parks. We need more beach accesses. And you get that through raising your taxes. So I would not oppose the idea of it if it came up.
Mr. Godette?
The county is sustained by the lower tax rate that we're referring to now. It's sustained by other taxes. But folks, let me ask you this. If the tax rate, ad valorem tax rate goes down, where's the money going to come from to sustain this beautiful county that we have here? And I submit to you that when these taxes go down, who does it affect? Let me help answer the question. When the ad valorem taxes go down, sales tax, the money has to come from somewhere, so other taxes go up. And when those taxes go up, who do they affect? If you look back at the average, I believe it's the per capita income in this county is around $29,000, $30,000. Well, it's hard to live when you have that kind of money coming in and other taxes are going up. So the reduction of this tax rate down to what it is today is not a good idea. It's not positively affecting the average citizen.
Thank you. I have one final question before closing statements. It comes from the audience. Assuming you're elected, what is the highest and most pressing issue or project that you would concentrate your attention on, and why? We'll begin with Ms. Pratt.
I would normally say environmental issues because that's my major passion, but I think that raising the supplement for teachers would be the first thing that I would want to work on, because we need to keep the good teachers we have and to recruit new teachers so that our students can have the best.
Thank you. Ms. Tomberlin.
I think we have got to fix our county communication. After Florence and before Florence and during Florence, a lot of us had no idea what was going on. The county has got to come up with a better evacuation plan and a better communication plan and a better plan for after the storm than what happened in Florence, and that should be a priority.
Thank you. Mr. Godette.
For me, it's the job issue. I believe that with better paying jobs and more jobs, other things will be positively affected by this issue. And so for me, it's the job issue.
Thank you. Mr. Litalien.
I think the immediate thing is hurricane recovery. There's still a lot to be done. There's still a lot of people out there that are dealing with issues when it comes to being displaced. Obviously, if you look at the roadsides, we still have lots of debris problems and things of that nature. So I think that's probably the most pressing concern. And I mentioned earlier about the idea of forming a working group to examine how we can deal with some of these things better in the future. But if there was just any other day or Hurricane Florence hadn't blown through here, I would probably focus much more on the concern regarding the opioid issue and the mental health issue. I think that's a growing concern. I think it's time that we really take a serious look at addressing that problem.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you all for taking time to be here this evening. We will wrap up with your closing statement, and we will begin with Ms. Tomberlin.
Again, I'm Katie Tomberlin. I'm running for County Commissioner in District 2, which is Newport and part of Broad Creek. I just really want to emphasize the fact that it's very important to get out and vote. Elections have been won by just one vote, and I know a lot of people feel like their voices don't matter, and they really, really do. It's time that we have fair and equal representation, and that we don't have people on the board that are there just for their own agendas. I urge you all to do your research on all of the candidates, no matter who it may be. Make educated decisions on who you want to vote for, because it's your future in their hands. And please, 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 please vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Godette.
me here, and I just ask for your vote because this county is going to be in better hands with commissioners like us sitting on those seats. And we are going to fight for you. And not just one person, but every person in the county will be looked after. Doesn't matter what color, what gender, how much money you make, we're going to fight for you. So I thank you so much.
First of all, thank you all again for being here, and I want to thank the Democratic Party for sponsoring this event. There's a lot to be said at this particular point. We're less than 2 weeks away from the election. This election's a pretty big deal. And, the old saying about politics being local, during the course of my campaign, I've learned a lot about that. I've also learned that politics are not just local, they're also personal. So a lot of things we have going on here in this county that are they're pretty amazing, from one little municipality to another. But change and making things better starts at the local level. And it goes up from there, whether it's local, state, federal. And these days, and it just seems every day it seems like there's something new. It's getting to the point where you can't even use the word polarization because it sounds quite like it's an old-fashioned thing. Polarization. There's lots of things we need to do to fix this country, locally, state level, and federal level. But it all starts with us. And where's my buddy Rhett Newton? Hey, Rhett. He was talking to the Down East Council a couple weeks ago, and he said something that really struck me. He said, right now, today through November 6th, each and every one of us has a superpower. And we should do everything we can to exercise that superpower and encourage other people, friends, neighbors, to go out and do the same thing. We're all stakeholders in what happens here in Carteret County, across North Carolina, and across our country. And it all starts here. Please get out there and vote. I'm asking for your help and your support and your vote. My name's Dennis Litalien. I'm running in District 6, Down East area. And no matter where you live in Carteret County, you can vote for me. And I would ask you to ask your friends to do the same as well. Thank you all again for your time. And as I've said over and over again, together we can do better.
Ms. Pratt.
I know change can be scary, but the status quo only helps a small portion of our community. We need to try something different. We need a new perspective and balance in our local government. We need civility. We need compassion. I put myself out there amongst all the divisiveness, not for myself, but because the people of my district and this county deserve to be treated with respect. I will work for everyone, not just the people who think the way I do. Thank you all for being here.
I'll tell you candidates that we had several questions about the Leon Mann Center being closed as a shelter on Sunday. I'm afraid that I cannot confirm nor deny the status of that, so it was not brought up. But it is something that if anyone here has some knowledge of, we would be more than happy to try to help and assist with. Yes, starting tomorrow morning.
So the Leon Mann Center consistently has to have a soft close date as required by their bylaws with the Red Cross and with the county. And this soft close date has happened over and over and over again. It just keeps getting pushed. So there is a date saying that it's closing on Sunday, but the Sunday before there was a date that it was supposed to close that Sunday, and so on and so forth. So there is no plan at this time. I spoke with the regional director who was there at the Leon Mann Center this week to confirm that they are not planning on closing at any time in the near future.
Terrific. Thank you.
Excuse me. I'm at the Leon Mann Center. My home on 270 Brant Landing Road is untenable compliments of the hurricane. I'm staying there. We are being told Sunday, 1 p.m., that's it. There is not a soft close. I was at the county commissioners on the 8th, on the 7th, the Saturday before they tried this before. And yes, they're pushing everybody into any hotel they can find. They are not, the funds have not been released. The government has promised to help us get out. There's lack of housing. I myself was not in this wheelchair before the hurricane, but as a volunteer afterwards, I now have 2 broken ankles. I broke 2 bones and 1 ankle broke, 2 bulging discs and a torn rotator cuff. And I'm going to be in this thing for another 8 to 12 months. Now, I don't want to be there forever, and I realize this. But when there's a lack of housing, and we're waiting on money from the government that's supposed to be coming in the next week, 10 days, they're choosing now to say, that's it, we're pulling out. It's not a soft date. This is coming from all the Red Cross is telling us that's it. There are people there that have autistic children going to high school that don't need to be shoved into a motel room after. We could use some help. I myself know that give me another 10 days. I already know what's coming my way. They've told me. It's just a matter of getting FEMA and Red Cross on the same page right now to get us out where we can stand on our own 2 feet. I wasn't even working for somebody. I was helping, and I'm stuck in this. Mary and Wade have 2 autistic children. I've come to know them for the past 7 weeks since this hurricane. Good people. We're not druggies. We don't have criminal records. I work 6 days a week. I don't want to be homeless for a week and a half with 2 cats because county commissioners want to go ahead and cut it. Red Cross pull out. Get us a little extra time. The people there really are, we're jumping through every hoop. We're going to every place they send us. We're filling out everything in triplicate. At some point, we know it's got to end, but we know we're being told appeals take 7 to 10 business days. That's the end of next week.
Perhaps our candidates know better, but I thought we were told by the county commissioners that that would stay open until it's no longer needed.
Yes, that's what they said at the last commission.
That's correct. I was there, and the one before. And I'm telling you that they're shutting it down on Sunday at 1 o'clock, and it's not a hard, they're already packing up the nurses station. There are no full-time nurses there anymore. They are sending in a skeleton crew to work with us, and they are trying everything they can to just put everybody into a motel and then go, okay, you're on your own, but with no real plan what's going to happen in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. Some of them are still waiting for FEMA to get their houses repaired, help with getting their houses repaired that were flooded.
If you could hang around to let some of our candidates here get some contact information from you.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll see.
I'm also one of those that pays property tax, so I know that there should be something happening in county commissioners, and it's not. So.
He deserves a round of applause.
And we will certainly, as a group and just as fellow humans, we will see what we can do to assist you in this plight. Thank you all. We will get ready for our state House and Senate candidates next. Take about 5 minutes. Penny's on that side and Denver's on this side. Yeah. Yep, 2 and 3. Yes, Gerald.
How's your stuff you said that
on this evening. All right, next up is our North Carolina House District 13 and North Carolina Senate District 2 candidates, Pene diMaio and Dr. Ginger Garner. I'd like to thank you both for coming this evening. As with the other segments, we will begin with opening statements. Ms. diMaio.
Hi, folks. First, I'd like to thank the Democratic Party for sponsoring this event. And I'd also like to thank the Democratic Party for supporting me. I'm an independent, and I truly appreciate the fact that they are supporting me and believe in my vision. And most of you know me. I am pretty much preaching to the choir here, and so I had some words that I was going to say today, but then one of a wonderful woman from the Democratic Party sent out a note today, and her words were just so perfect. I thought I was going to steal some of them. And so thank you, Ann Van Horn. I am asking forgiveness because I couldn't get permission, but I'm going to steal some of your words. This is what she wrote. I want my state back. A state where people are treated with respect and not insulted, called names, lied about. Where women are treated with respect and dignity, not ridiculed and demeaned. Men and women who bravely stand for justice, education, healthcare, and the environment. I want change in direction. This change has to begin at the top. I want leaders who will prove honorable and trustworthy. I want leaders who speak the truth. Leaders who inspire cooperation rather than division. Encouragement rather than condemnation, who accept responsibility rather than blame others. Leaders who are willing to sacrifice for state over party, for the planet over finance, for clean water over oil. I want available medical care which includes treatment for ongoing conditions and reasonable prescription drug prices. I am going to take action. I am going to fight. I want change from school boards, state house, and Senate to Washington, D.C. I want my country back. I want my state back. And I will vote. And I will run. Thank you, folks, for being here. This is so important that we know what our choices are and we know what we have to do. So, thank you for being here.
Good evening, everybody. How are you guys doing? Good. It's after 8. I have to admit, that's pushing into my bedtime. As many of you, most of you know me, my name is Ginger Garner. I've been in this district for 20 years, living in Emerald Isle. I moved down here from Chapel Hill after I finished graduate work at UNC, and I moved down here because the area that I was working in healthcare, was underserved. And if I could say and put my finger on one thing that was a catalyst for me running, in addition to being a mom of 3 boys, wanting them to have a good education and access to the healthcare that they need, is that 20 years later, we are still underserved and we are still lacking in healthcare services across the board. So that is really an impetus for why I'm running. But one more thing I'd like to point out is that Pene and I sitting up here as a Democrat and as an independent is the very spirit of what we need in our legislature in North Carolina right now.
Thank you. We'll start with a question about storm construction. Would you support state help in funding for the construction of storm shelters that can withstand major hurricanes within Jones, Carteret, Craven, and Pamlico County? Ms. diMaio.
Oh, most absolutely. As well as needing a plan and construction for these buildings, what I found was horribly apparent was that we had no plan, no post-recovery plan to speak of. The construction of buildings that would be able to withstand these most definitely more often storms would also serve as shelters that we are in desperate need of, and as resource centers from which we could work to recover from these disasters. Thank you.
Dr. Garner?
Absolutely. There's no reason why we shouldn't apply just basic common sense and be prepared. As most of you know, and you've read a little bit about climate science, who read the UN report of late? Yeah, that came out. Quite devastating, isn't it? That basically says we're behind the power curve. And I know both of us sitting up here believe in science. So what we need is a solid plan put into action that observes that uses common sense and says, you know what, not just shelters, but we need to extend our building code to change what we're doing down here so that we have sustainable buildings for the future. That means we won't be homeless, that our roofs won't be peeled off, which I was seriously concerned about in my own house in the storm, and just praying that the thing would stay on. We need to change building code across the board, and as well as funding for sturdy shelters that will withstand these increasingly devastating storms that we're having.
Next question is, what should North Carolina as a state be doing to combat the effects of global climate change? Dr. Garner?
Well, 1 minute. Yeah, I did a little bit of side-eye there because there's so much that we can do. There's so much that we can do, but we're not doing anything. In fact, right now our General Assembly is trying to, because of the supermajority that's being held there, it seems, when I look at the voting record of my opponent, which I have right here, which is pretty heavy and pretty terrible, that they're doing everything possible to roll back regulations, to force neighbors into serious, poor health and adverse consequences of living next to hog farms. We're not doing anything about cleaning up our rivers. That bill is being shifted to the taxpayer. So there's a great deal that we can do. When looking at my opponent's record, every time any effort would have been put forth to improve the situation, he has voted against it. So the first thing that we can do is, of course, get elected.
Exactly.
And then move to repeal some of these things that have been set into place. But we can't do that without breaking the supermajority.
All right, now that I've listened to her, would you please repeat the question?
Certainly. What should North Carolina be doing as a state to combat the effects of global climate change? I would say specifically the legislature.
Yes. Well, as Ginger said, there's just so much that can be done. We need to change our regulations in regards to where we can develop land. The unplanned development has wreaked havoc with our wetlands, with our marshes. The whole idea of not paying for the equipment needed to test the quality of the water for the Gen X and the other chemicals. They voted against paying the extra money for the extra equipment because if they found out that this other stuff was there, they would have to clean that up as well. And I think we really have to look into the buyout of the hog farms, get them out of the floodplains. As Ginger said, we have to get elected. We have to have a different perspective than just profits. for the corporations. We have to start taking care of this land if we want our kids to have a place to live.
There's a question here about that, and I'll roll it into another one as well, so it'll be a two-part. Do you support offshore drilling and seismic blasting? And the next question is, what role should the legislature play in the Gen X water disaster? We'll begin with you, Ms. diMaio.
I think I've said it very many times that I am definitely against offshore drilling and seismic blasting. Our economy, our life, quality of life depends on clean water in our oceans. Seismic blasting will wreak havoc with the marine mammal, wildlife, marine wildlife, period. And considering the fact that they estimate that there might be 6 months worth of oil, it is just not worth the risk. In regards to the Gen X pollution, Chemours has still not been stopped. They say they have reduced it to a certain amount, but the science says that their amount is still not healthy for us. What does the state have to do? It has to insist that these companies that are polluting our waters have to take responsibility for it, have to pay for the cleanup, they have to stop using these toxic chemicals.
Thank you.
That's what I can say.
Dr. Garner.
Well, I'm a mom of 3 boys, and they're messy. They're very messy. And my house would be an absolute disaster if I didn't do one really important thing. When they make a mess, I make them clean it up. And then I stick to my guns. Our General Assembly isn't doing that. They are letting big corporations buy their seat, buy their vote, and then allowing them to run off down the street making a mess everywhere. And then they don't have to clean it up. Now, where's the common sense in that? And then they're going to shift that burden to the taxpayers, right? Like with Duke Energy. There's a lot that we can do. Obviously, I'm not for offshore drilling or seismic blasting at all. As Pene has already mentioned, even if there were something out there under the ocean, it's very limited, right, in nature. We need to protect and preserve what we have. And there's not any of that money that's going to come onshore to us anyway. Now that's if we were trying to play devil's advocate. There's just no good reason to do it. But the risks far outweigh what any perceived benefits would be, because I don't believe that there are any benefits, right? So we need to look at the legislation which my opponent voted for, is to turn down the study for the Gen X disaster. And we need to repeal any legislation related to that. We also need to repeal any legislation that allows companies to go tripping around the state, dumping chemicals into the river, and then not making them clean it up. So I just go back to common sense parenting. If you make a mess, you clean it up. If you break something, you pay for it and you replace it. And that's what we need to pursue in our legislature. But right now, that doesn't exist. And again, we have to get elected to get there and make that difference. But that's
the difference is we are not being paid by those companies to stay to allow them to do that.
That brings up the very important point of campaign finance reform. When I pull up my opponent's record of campaign finance, most every dollar that he has not raised himself, by the way, and not in a grassroots way, has come from dirty, dark corporate PACs.
That's just mine.
Next question is from Ms. diMaio. One issue that you have campaigned on is treating the opioid epidemic in our state. What would you do as a member of the North Carolina General Assembly to address this problem?
The federal government has recently granted $30 million to the state of North Carolina to address just this problem. From what I understand, very little bit of that money has been dispersed. So right off the bat, you would have to find out where this money went, why it's not being distributed to the various organizations that need this money. As Litalien mentioned before, is a facility. Sounds like a good recipient to me. I would like to look more into it. But the fact of the matter is we do not have the facilities, the physicians, the service providers we need, especially down here, down east, Jones County and Carteret County. And so I would work to find that money and make sure it is dispersed correctly.
Thank you. Next question is for you both. Do you support or oppose expanding Medicaid in North Carolina? We'll start with Dr. Garner.
Having worked in healthcare since 1995, when I was first licensed, and then coming down here in 1998, I was quite shocked. Now, when I graduated, I was quite idealistic, and what 20 years has told me is that I need to be an idealistic realist. That's pretty much why I'm running right now, because I have hope that I would be able to implement that change. It is one thing for our legislature to be filled with qualified attorneys who can craft those bills, but if we are not talking to the subject matter experts who can make a difference, particularly with the opioid crisis and for things like Medicaid expansion, then those bills will fall flat. And I think that's where we are, flat on our face in the General Assembly right now. The things that we need to look at are really multi-pronged here. It's not just a simple answer. To touch a little bit on the opioid crisis, if we cannot expand Medicaid, how do we expect for people to get the services they need? And the other part of the importance of the imperative of expansion of Medicaid is if we want to improve our microeconomy down here, then we need jobs in the area. And that's a wonderful way to improve what our microeconomy and to support jobs is to expand Medicaid and to bring more healthcare providers and more service providers into the area. We could desperately use that. And being that we have such a wide range of socioeconomic statuses in this county and in the Tri-County area that I am traveling across the 1,500 square miles so very often, is that when patients come in and people come in to see me, they very likely will never get to me if they don't have a mainstream healthcare plan that doesn't include Medicare or Medicaid. And I'm a physical therapist, for those of you who don't know me. I've spent all of my time down here treating chronic pain. How many people do you think that are on Medicaid now or that receive some type of health care actually get to me in a timely manner? Almost none. So that by the time they do get to me, they are addicted to drugs of some sort. Either it's helping them sleep or helping them wake up or killing the pain. And then it's my job to help wean them from that. If we had expansion of Medicaid and other services, and it doesn't necessarily mean raising taxes or spending more money, because I believe there's a great deal of waste that goes on in the healthcare system, having looked at that from the inside out, we would be much better off as a population in this whole Tri-County area.
Thank you. Mr. Lyon.
Right now, there's a bill sitting in the legislature called Carolina Cares. It is basically Medicaid expansion, but when we were trying to promote that to our legislators, we were not allowed to use the words Medicaid expansion. We were supposed to say an insurance-like plan with premiums and deductibles. And this plan is completely funded by the federal government. It wouldn't cost North Carolina anything as far as I understand. and it's sitting in the Rules Committee, which is basically the graveyard. My opponent, despite repeated requests from many of us and the League of Women Voters, would not call for that to come out of the Rules Committee and actually have debate and vote on it. I will admit I am a proponent of universal health care, and I believe that it is something that was much more cost-effective in the long run than the multi-tiered medical pharmaceutical conglomerate we have out there. It would save us money. But as a state legislature, I wouldn't have much to say about that, but that's what I would work towards eventually. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you think a $7.25 an hour minimum wage is adequate? If not, how much should it be? And should it have auto increases tied to inflation? Ms. diMaio.
No, $7.25 is not going to get you much at all. In fact, it'll get you nothing. Even $15 an hour is not going to get much. You're going to need to, excuse me, 2 incomes in order to live a fairly decent life down here in Carter County. But as it was mentioned before, the cost of living here is much higher than what most, well, I wouldn't say most, many incomes can support. So yes, I do support a higher minimum wage. It's going to be tough with the small businesses that are here, but I think we have to think in terms of the livelihood of our people. And if their income is more, then they can pay more for the services and products provided by those small businesses. And I think we definitely have to go after the large corporations, the Walmarts and the Walmarts. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Garner.
I was born in 1973 to teenage parents. My mom was barely 16 years old. She dropped out of high school to have me. And by the time she was 19, she had 2 more. Didn't know they were coming until she was at the hospital. They were identical twins. So that tells you where we sat, right, in the big scheme of things. My grandparents lived nearby. We gardened. We hunted to survive. That's what we had to do. I didn't know air conditioning, not even a window unit, until high school, growing up in central North Carolina. And up until a couple of years ago, my parents still heated the whole house with a wood stove. Growing up in the 70s, without not either of my parents, both of them had to quit high school. And you say had, but when you have kids and you've got to work for a living, what are you going to do? They were forced to do that. Now, my mom went back and managed to get her associate's degree. Then she went on to work for a local newspaper for the rest of her career until they laid her off right before retirement, right during the recession. So she's been bringing things together in different ways, making ends meet. My dad is also self-employed now. But the point is this. Number one, I learned about resilience and grit early and often. I learned how to help out in the garden. I learned how to field dress a deer. I learned how to change my own oil, and I can thank my hardworking parents for that. But here's the deal. They were able to cobble together a living on minimum wage jobs in the 70s, in the 80s, but you can't do that now. $7 and change is shameful. It's just outright shameful what people are earning. It isn't a living that they're earning. And we can do far better than that. one of the ways that we can do that is to increase the minimum wage and to go after the larger companies who will set precedent. Because if you can't make change from the top down, well, then let's start with employers who will take pledges and say, I will pay my employees $15 an hour. Now, I'm a small business owner. I got that honest from my dad, and that's my pledge. Nobody has ever made less than that when they work for my organization. We can do that, and I'm doing okay, right, with that. We all need to make that pledge as small business owners, as large corporations. If we put that pressure on, I believe that we can make that happen in a positive way, and that will help our economy to thrive. Other countries do that, and they respect their workers and they take care of them. We can do the same thing.
For Dr. Garner. Since you brought up you are a small business owner, you have a unique perspective on the needs of small businesses in our district. What would you do as our state senator to help grow and promote small business development in our district?
The very first thing that comes to my mind, and probably the biggest deal, because it's affected not just me, but I think it also prevents companies and families from moving into this area, young families, the kind of families we need to stay in this area and to move to this area, to get an education here and then stay, not move away, is to improve high-speed internet access. If we can do that, then we can attract businesses, we can attract employers and employees who maybe they live in the Apex area. You know what? They can live anywhere. They telecommute. But if you get all the way down here in Pamlico County, can you even hook up to the internet reliably? Not all the time. So that's one of the main things that I've heard in traversing the whole district, from people way down in Pamlico to down east to even where I am, is that we need to improve broadband access. And if you look at the legislative agendas of different towns and of our chamber, that's top of their list on the legislative agenda, one of the top things. So I think that's, if I had to list one thing, we should probably focus on that first.
Thank you. Next question is for you both. Do you support the expansion of green energy in our state? I'll start with Ms. diMaio.
We were just talking about how do we attract small businesses here, but we also need to attract more solar production facilities. And it seems to me, with all our hot air, we would do really well with wind farms, offshore wind farms. And these are two industries that will provide year-long living wage jobs. And not to mention, it's going to give us a much higher quality of energy, perhaps lowering our reliance on Duke, and that's only a good thing in my mind. Absolutely, I support sustainable energy.
Thank you. Dr. Garner.
I believe it's the Iroquois Nation has a saying, and you all know it. It is that in every deliberation and action that we make, we need to consider how it will impact 7 generations from now. Our General Assembly is not doing that. They're not looking past their nose and the glasses on their face that has their campaign donations and where they came from to dictate how they're voting. It's an atrocity, and we need to change that. I absolutely support green energy because it's the only sustainable choice that we have. Now, if we look at our opponents of that, they may say, well, what about the casting off, solar panels, and we need to figure out a way to recycle those. Now, the opponents would say, oh, you're just creating more trash with solar panels. I read an article on that today. But we need to come up with responsible ways of generating clean energy, supporting clean energy, and then recycling programs when those elements have run their course. So it's about being there in the generation of it, creating jobs, and sustainable energy for the future, protecting our coastline and the way it is now, and cleaning it up, and then also making sure that we have deliberated to the point where we figure out what to do after when we need those things to be recycled in some way.
Thank you. Next question is from our audience. Should right-to-work laws be abolished? Should right-to-work laws be abolished? Dr. Garner.
Right-to-work laws were implemented in a way that was very deceptive, and you're all probably quite aware of that. To the average voter, the phrase right to work may look like a really good idea. But what it's doing is suppressing, oppressing, preventing our workers from organizing, from making sound arguments for better pay and better working conditions. And right now in North Carolina, we have a very unfriendly employee state and worker state. So abolishing those would allow us to protect our worker and our employee. And when you talk about quality of life and attracting workers to our state, we're already bleeding in a very critical way, losing good workers, good teachers, etc. right now. So we need to stop the bleeding and make sure that workers have a right to unionize and organize.
Thank you. Ms. DiMaio.
My father, back in the 30s and the 40s, was a wild union man. He fought the scabs, and all his life, I come from New York, and all his life he has been a union man. And those union men came to my house after my dad died, and my brother had gotten to a working age, and they offered him a job in that same union. Again, from New York, I'm a teacher, or I was a teacher rather, and here I was coming to a state where teachers are not allowed to unionize. And look what we've got as a result of the fact that we are not allowed to unionize. We have the lowest supplement. My opponent is very happy to talk about how they have raised teachers' pay in the past few years. But when you were down at 49 and now you're at 47 out of the 50 states, it's not something to crow about. We've got an awful lot, very far to go there. Yes, right to work is another way of the Republicans spinning their very nefarious ideas and putting pretty names on them, and right to work is not a pretty thing.
Thank you. Do you support partisan school boards in our counties?
No.
Dr. Garner?
Absolutely not. There's no place for it.
We have one final question before our closing statements. How will you be able to reconcile your responsibilities in Raleigh with your responsibilities to connect with your coastal constituents? Ms. diMaio, how do you plan to keep us informed?
I have a friend, Pricey Harrison. She's a representative over in the Goldsboro area, and she sends out a newsletter at least once a month. My opponent, I've never heard anything from her about what she's doing in regards to our county. I like to communicate. I communicate a lot. I like to write. I will be very active in communicating with my constituents. I've compiled quite an email list, and I plan on using it a lot.
Thank you. Dr. Garner?
I'm sure we'll be equally informing our constituents, that you can count on that pledge from both of us. I just signed a pledge, was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, that if I'm elected, I will be holding regular town halls.
I signed the same one.
That's good. That's critical. That's absolutely critical, because that is how in politics, in policy creation, fear is created. And that's what our country is being run on, our state is being run on right now, is fear. How you dispel that fear is to get in front of another person and to genuinely communicate with them. I've spent my lifetime doing that as a healthcare provider, gaining the trust of the people that I see and letting them know you can trust me to help you get out of pain. In politics is no different. If I make it, when I make it to the General Assembly, I'll be doing the same thing. Establishing meaningful relationships through town halls, through newsletters, through direct communication, to tell all of you, you can trust me to help us out of the situation that we're in. And when I don't have the answers, I'm an educator, I'm a healthcare provider. That's my wheelhouse, right? I'm not a policy or economics expert, but some of you may be. Some of you are environmental experts. Then that's when I need to hear from you. That's when I'll be consulting you guys who are subject matter experts in other areas. And that's how we will make our state better, is together.
Time to be here this evening. We will conclude with your closing statements, and we'll begin with Ms. diMaio.
Thank you again for staying this late. It is my bedtime as well. After Florence, we were just talking about communicating with our constituents. After Florence, I put aside the campaign and I went out there and I was checking on people's houses. I was checking on people to make sure that they were in the right, that they were okay. I was communicating via email and Facebook and the various forums to make sure that we were all being taken care of. When I get to the legislature, I'm going to be doing the same thing. And I just ask you to make sure you grab 5, 10 people and drag them down to the voting booths. I don't care if they vote for me or not, but just get them to the voting booths. This is too important. Thank you all so very much for being here.
As you were talking, Penny, it reminded me of being at, well, not just the work during and after the hurricane. We both stayed, so we were really on the front lines the whole time, which meant we were able to help many more people. But afterwards, as Newburgh was still struggling, they decided to go on with their Mum Fest. And so I went, and it was uplifting. It was also very disheartening. I took a walk in the downtown area behind the scenes of what was glossy and cleaned up. And it was heartbreaking. In fact, I didn't want to show up to Mum Fest, but I had to, because, you know, I was signed up to be there. I just wanted to sit on the steps of one of the houses and just cry. Because there was so much that needed to be done. But like many days, when you're tired and you're worn out, you need to keep going, and that's what this campaign is it's a marathon. I, pulled myself up by my bootstraps and said, get on over there and meet some people, talk to people. And there was a volunteer there at the tent, and she was grabbing people as they came by. They were signing people up to support the Equal Rights Amendment, which is a whole other situation, right, that we need to be addressing in North Carolina, in number 38, yes. For everybody listening. And this amazing volunteer who I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you volunteer on a campaign, good Lord in heaven, thank you for everything that you were doing. Thank you for running. Thank you guys who were sitting out in the audience, and I see you guys, for running. That's what we need to do. It's what we have to do. She grabbed this young African-American guy as he was walking by and said, hey, are you registered to vote? He said, no. I said, no, I've actually never voted. Not only was he not registered to vote, he'd never voted. Now, I'm 45. It's hard for me to tell how old people are, you know? I don't know whether he was 25 or he could have been 35, but the point is, he was well past voting age and has never voted. She stood with him for about 20 minutes, giving him all the answers. I tried to even butt my way in and say, hey, let me get in here. She's like, no, I got it. But that young man ended up walking away, not registering to vote, because he thinks his vote doesn't matter. That was devastating to me. So our job here tonight is to go out and grab a young person and ask them, are you registered to vote? My campaign manager stalks people, you know. Jesse and stalks people, hey, are you registered to vote? And in a restaurant, hey, I got the papers right here, let me sign you up, right? Go out and talk to young people. We need to get them out to vote, because many of them, like this young man, doesn't understand how critical it is and how important it is to vote. So it's important to go out, talk to them, grab one person, grab 5, like Pene said. I'll upper one and say, let's grab 10 if you can, you know, get them to the polls. And please let us know if you know someone who needs a ride. In fact, to drive the minivan and my other car and, you know, get everybody involved, that's what we'll do, because it's that critical. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for staying out this late. Thank you to the Democratic Party for providing this forum for all of us to be able to talk about the issues that we all care about so much. Thank you.
For this evening, I would like to thank everyone for attending. I'd like to thank the News Times for being here. Jackie, thank you. Please drive home safely. If you have any questions or concerns, you can check our candidates in the lobby. Thank you. Good night.